set to go, Whitten?
Yeah, guess so.
You never been out on a recon before, have you?
No, but guy's got to start sometime.
Well, it's not so tough. It's just common sense. Remember your training, keep your eyes and ears open, and you'll do all right.
Thanks.
Got all your equipment?
Yeah.
Your rations?
Yeah.
Grain for the horse?
Everything's all set.
Okay. We get that ring off. We'll have an inspection before we start. I'll make my check just before that. Got about a half hour if you got any questions.
Yeah, where are we going?
Well, I won't know that till I see the captain. He knows what our mission is, what route to take, what to look for, how and when we report, and when to get back. You see, we're out to get information from the enemy and get it back. The enemy's going to do everything they can to keep us from getting it. And believe me, they're not dumb. I know, I've watched them operate. We may run into the enemy anywhere. That's why our job is to move without being seen and to see without being seen. Because you can never tell where those monkeys are. We never stop to observe in the open. I don't need to tell you why. And we don't silhouette ourselves in the skyline. And we never bunch up either. We want our men scattered out, so they'll be hard to see and hard to hit, but close enough for control. And of course, we always move by bounds. You know what advancing by bounds means, don't you?
Well, a little.
Well, maybe we better run over just to clear it up. Say, Bert! Bert, have you got that road sketch you made this morning? Yeah, okay. Hey, Whitten, come over here, will you? This will show you what I mean. We'll use these matches to represent our troopers. Now, say this is our patrol in these woods. And we want to move over to this hill. Now, if the enemy happens to be here, and we move through this open valley, we might as well paint targets on our backs, because we'll be like ducks in a shooting gallery. So what we do is, we send 2 men out ahead, covered by the rest of the patrol to reconnoiter. If everything's okay, they signal back, and the rest of the patrol moves up. Now, when we all get together, we look for our next critical point. 2 men go out ahead, signal back, everything okay, the rest of the patrol moves up again. Now, that's what's called advancing by bounds.
Well, isn't that known as security, too?
Well, that's only part of it. You see, security is like the whiskers of a cat. Feelers all around an area of about 300 yards. Because that's a normal rifle range, so that's all we're worried about. I'll show you what I mean. Now, this is our patrol. 2 men out in front. 2 men in the rear with rubbernecks. They've got a double job. They've got to observe to the rear and protect the patrol. We've also got to have our 3 flanks protected.
3? I know the left flank and the right flank. Where's the 3rd?
Overhead. We'll get to that later. Now, as I said, we have 2 men out in front. They're known as the point. They never ride side by side so that the second man, the corporal, can check up quickly on what the leading trooper sees and also direct the rest of the patrol. He sends scouts to the flanks, and by pointing out possible danger spots along the route of march, he keeps the patrol moving along from one critical point to another. When we're in a narrow canyon with steep, rough sides, the point remains out in front. And if the terrain permits, the flankers ride up and observe over the rim of the canyon. Now about a valley. Suppose it's so wide that we couldn't have flankers on the ridges at both sides because we'd lose sight of them. Well, the answer is the patrol hugs one ridge and keeps flankers observing over it. If enemy fire should suddenly blast away at them, they could easily duck over the ridge nearest them. Because we are well dispersed and we blend in to a certain extent with the terrain. An enemy patrol would have a hard time seeing us and a tougher time shooting us. Sure, they might see our point, But our point would probably see them before they spotted the rest of the patrol. That's how we keep out of trouble.
Well, what about the third flank?
Well, the third flank, that's protection from the air. Let's see what we do about that. In the first place, we're always well dispersed, so we're hard to hit. So if planes are approaching while you're in the open, and they're high-flying planes, just stop and freeze in position. Chances are they won't even see you. On the other hand, if they're low-flying planes, get into concealment if possible. As long as you're well dispersed, the chances are they won't even waste ammunition on you. In any case, as long as they don't spot you, don't fire and disclose your position. But if they attack, fire back and give them everything you got. That's what we mean by protecting our third flank. It's all part of security. See what I mean?
You mean there's more to security than that?
Well, it depends on the terrain. Now, for example, take the woods. The woods are good concealment, so we like to ride through them. But they're good concealment for the enemy, too. Remember that. When we approach a wooded area, the first man on the point rides up to take a look. He stays mounted because he might want to get out of there in a hurry. If things don't seem just right, he says so. And the corporal will dismount to take a closer look. Sure, it all takes time, but that time is well spent. That corporal has 7 men depending on him, and he's going to do everything he can to get them back in one piece. The second in command, riding at the tail of the formation, takes charge. He watches for signals from the point. In a good squad, the second in command knows what to do when the point is hesitating. He sends 2 or 3 men forward. The rest of the patrol covers the flanks and rear. Those men get their instructions from the corporal, who has picked out good positions for them to cover the advance of the point. One man stays with the horses to keep them mobile. The others advance and occupy their positions. We have taken all possible precautions to protect the advance of the point. Now, if they are fired upon, they'll at least have a good chance of getting away. Our dismounted riflemen will pin the enemy down long enough for the point to reach the nearest cover. Watch the point. They don't head straight back. They're riding off to the flank so they won't match the fire of their own men. Don't ever head straight back. That's suicide. Don't stay and fight if you can possibly avoid it. Fight only in self-defense or in order to accomplish the mission. Now, the second man keeps his eye on the enemy until the patrol moves out. The corporal comes back to the patrol, tells them where the enemy is, and then shows them how to sideslip. Sideslipping is making a detour around the enemy. Take a look at this map. Now, suppose the enemy is here. And this is where we are. Well, if we followed our original route, it'd lead us right into the enemy. So, we detour, or sideslip. Around this ridge, into this patch of woods, and come around this way. Our counter-reconnaissance will pick up that enemy patrol later on.
Yeah, but how do we make sure we get back on our course?
By picking out what are known as intermediate objectives. They're landmarks that'll guide us. Now, say we're in this patch of woods, and we want to head due north. So now we pick out a landmark. This hill. That's a good intermediate objective because it not only guides us, but it also offers good cover and concealment. We'll get there by bounds. But before moving out, the patrol leader names the next assembly point. That's the spot where we can get together if for any reason we get scattered. So you see, Whitten, a good assembly point must have good cover or concealment, or both, must be easy for us to find, but hard for enemy vehicles to reach. Have you got all that straight?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Suppose we're at an intermediate objective.
Well, then we pick out a new intermediate objective.
All right, then what?
Then we pick out a new assembly point.
Okay. Here.
Then we move to a new intermediate objective. By bound.
That's it. All right, now we get to our real objective. Probably our planes have made aerial photographs of this territory, so we'll know where most of the suspicious places are. But in any case, the troop commander will give us a list of specific questions he wants answered. For example, he might ask us, are there any enemy troops in this territory? How many? What kind? Like, are they armored? Are they cavalry or infantry? You see what I mean? Now, if they are there, you can bet they'll have security patrols all around. So we'll have to be plenty slippery to get past them to our objective. There it is, those woods. Before we move in closer, we observe the woods mounted and then dismounted from several different points. We concentrate on the flanks and the rear, where there's likely to be some activity. For example, we know troops have to be supplied, and most of the supplies will come down a road. So, look for a road. There'll probably be motorcycle messengers and supply trucks. If we have time, we can move in and reconnoiter those woods. If we don't have time to move in close, or if the area is too well guarded, we can still get some pretty good dope. Now, take those supply trucks. They don't mean much to us, but our officers get a lot out of knowing just how many trucks visited a certain locality and when. Now, suppose we see an enemy column. Can I borrow that? And this column is moving. Well, we just pick ourselves a good observation point and see how many and what kind of troops go by. But if the column is halted, then we move around its flank from one observation point to another. And we got to be plenty careful while we're doing it. Now, suppose we come across an inhabited place. Say like the village on this map. Would you move straight into it?
Well, that wouldn't be smart. You can't tell what you might run into.
Right. So we move around it. All the way around. We take a look from here, and here, and here, and here. Now, if we're told just to observe the village, we've done enough, we can go on about our business. But if we're told to reconnoiter the village, we still make our circle. We figure out the best method of approach. And when we get to a spot where we think we'll most likely bump into the enemy, we drop off a couple of scouts for security. Now, suppose we were coming from the south. Well, we'll probably enter the village from the east or the west. Do you know why?
So the enemy wouldn't know which direction we really came from?
Right. Now, we've got our approach figured out. We've got our security posted so we can get a dismounted patrol ready to move in. So far, so good. Now our problem is to get the information back, fast, while it's still worth something. If we don't get it back right away, chances are we wasted our time. There are lots of ways to send messages. We might have a radio along, or a radio liaison car might contact us according to a prearranged plan. But sometimes the enemy's listening in. That's why we usually send our messages by messenger. If it's extremely important, we'll probably send copies by 2 messengers over different routes. After the messages have been delivered, the troopers probably won't be able to catch up with us again. And as we don't have men to spare, we'll have to be careful to send only vital messages. I think I better get the boys in for the rest of this. All right, third squad, assemble over here. All right, let's go. I don't know yet what our mission's going to be. I do know we'll be operating in enemy territory. Maybe we'll only get beyond the first line of enemy outposts, and maybe we'll be operating all the way back to the main body. One thing I want you to remember. We're a reconnaissance patrol, and we've got a reputation to live up to. You can find a amount of patrols in every chapter of American history doing pretty much the same thing as we're getting set to do right now. Moving silently through the enemy's country, keeping in concealment, seeing without being seen, establishing contact with the enemy, keeping that contact, getting the information required and getting that information back. Now it's about time for me to see the captain. And if you got any questions? You're all clear. Your equipment's all set. All right, let's get ready for inspection. Haskell, you check the horses. McGowan, you draw the extra ammunition. All right, take off. Whitten, how do you feel about everything?
You know, I've had this stuff drilled into me ever since I've been in the Army, and I really know it. But this time it's the real thing, and, well, thanks for going over everything with me.
It's all right. You'll do okay.